George Strait is a country music legend. With more #1 hits than any artist in history, platinum records, and a career spanning decades, he's earned his title as the King of Country. But behind his success, there's a side of his life many don't know, one that involves his son. While fans admire George's music and cowboy lifestyle, few know about the heartbreaking details surrounding his family. His son, Bubba Strait, has lived in the shadows of fame, but his story is one that deserves to be told. Join us as we take a look at George Strait's journey and dive into the devastating details about his children, a childhood marked by change. George Strait was born on May 18, 1952 in Poteet, Texas. He grew up in Pearsall, a small town in Frio County, where his father, John Byron Strait Sr., worked as a junior high school math teacher. The family also owned a 2,000-acre cattle ranch near Big Wells, Texas. Weekends and summers were spent working on the ranch, a lifestyle that would shape George's love for country life. But his childhood took a painful turn when his parents divorced while he was in 4th grade. His mother, Doris Jean Kuzer, left with his sister Pensy, while George and his older brother Buddy stayed with their father. In that era, single fathers raising children alone was rare, making their family situation quite unusual. Strait rarely spoke about his mother in interviews. According to the book George Strait, the story of country's living legend, his mother's departure deeply affected him. The book noted, in all of his press biographies, mention of his mother is conspicuously missing. All that George will mention to this day is that she left the family, and she was no longer actively in their lives. Despite the challenges, his father stepped up and made sure George and Buddy were taken care of. Strait later expressed gratitude for his dad, saying, "He dedicated his whole life to raising my brother and me," a love that almost didn't happen. While navigating life in Pearsall, Strait met Norma Voss, the woman who would become his wife. But their love story wasn't straightforward. Even though he liked her, he wasn't sure about making a move. It wasn't until he realized he might miss the boat, as he put it, that he decided to pursue her. The two eventually eloped in Mexico in December 1971, just months after graduating high school. It was a spontaneous decision, but one that would stand the test of time. They later had a formal wedding in Texas to make things official. Shortly after their marriage, Strait made another big decision, one that would unknowingly set the stage for his future music career. He enlisted in the United States Army, becoming part of the 25th Infantry Division, also known as Tropic Lightning. He was stationed at Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, far from his Texas roots. At the time, the Vietnam War was still ongoing. Many soldiers were being sent overseas, but Strait's division remained in Hawaii, recovering from battles that had taken place before his arrival. With extra time on his hands, Strait found himself longing for something familiar: music. Though he had played in a rock band called the Stoics back in high school, music hadn't been his main focus. He had grown up listening to the Beatles and other British rock bands, but didn't initially consider a career in music. But being away from home changed that. He missed the country tunes he had grown up hearing across Texas, and that longing sparked something inside him. "Well, I was in the service, and for some reason I got it in me that I could sing," Strait later said in a 1982 interview. "I thought that I could possibly make a career out of singing, so I went and I bought a guitar. I started learning songs and learned enough where I could get a band together and did that. And the last year I was in the service, that's what I did for the Army, was sing country music." Strait formed a band with fellow soldiers called Rambling Country. They performed at military events and even played off bass under the name Santee. It was his first real step into the world of professional music, a new beginning after the Army. After being honorably discharged in 1975, Strait returned to Texas with Norma and their daughter, Jennifer, who was born in 1972 while he was stationed in Hawaii. Instead of jumping straight into music, he decided to pursue an education. He enrolled at Southwest Texas State University, now Texas State University, in San Marcos, where he studied agriculture. While attending college, he didn't leave music behind. He continued performing locally, slowly building a name for himself. Years later, he remained loyal to his alma mater. In 1985, he created an endowment fund to support agricultural research at the university's Freeman Ranch. Then in 2006, the school awarded him an honorary doctoral degree for his contributions to the industry. Strait's journey from a small-town rancher to one of country music's greatest legends was filled with unexpected twists. From a childhood shaped by loss to finding his passion for music in the military, his path was anything but ordinary. But through it all, he remained true to his roots, something that would later define his career and make him the king of country. A star who stays true to his fans. While fame has a way of changing people, George Strait is not one of them. Even after decades in the spotlight, he has always stayed true to his roots. Unlike most country artists who embrace flashy performances, Strait keeps things simple, and that's what fans love about him. One of his most unique concert traditions is how he positions himself on stage. Instead of staying in one spot, Strait moves throughout his performance. His stage is set up with 4 microphones placed at different points, arranged like a compass. Every 2 songs, he moves counterclockwise to the next microphone, ensuring that everyone in the crowd gets a close-up moment. Speaking of which, this setup isn't just a gimmick, it's a way for Strait to connect with his fans. As The New Yorker once described, every 2 songs, he moves counterclockwise to the next microphone, so that people in each quadrant of the crowd can feel as if he were singing just to them. And did you know that Strait also has a signature look that never changes? Unlike other artists who reinvent their image, he sticks to what feels right. Wrangler jeans, cowboy boots, a neatly pressed button-down shirt, and his iconic cowboy hat. It's a simple outfit, but it represents who he is, a traditional country star who doesn't feel the need to chase trends. Another thing that makes his concert special is that he takes requests. While most musicians follow a strict set list, Strait listens to what the audience wants. If a fan asks for a specific song, he'll play it. It's his way of making every show feel personal. This commitment to his audience is why his fans remain so loyal, even after all these years. Over his legendary career, George Strait has released numerous hit albums, but the one that became his bestseller was a complete surprise. The album that surprised everyone. It wasn't a studio album, it was the soundtrack for the 1992 movie Pure Country. The film starred Strait as Dusty Chandler, a country star struggling with burnout. Though the movie itself wasn't a massive success, the soundtrack became one of the biggest albums of his career. The entire album had to be recorded quickly before filming started, which could have led to a rushed, sloppy production. But instead, everything fell into place. Strait later reflected on the experience, saying, "The way it came together, it's been pretty amazing. I've done a lot of albums, and this one has come together easier than any album I've ever done, and turned out the best." Fans agreed. The album's lead single, Heartland, shot to #1 on the country charts. Another song, I Cross My Heart, became one of Strait's most beloved tracks. In total, the Pure Country soundtrack sold 6 million copies, making it the highest-selling album of his career. Though the film itself didn't make a lasting impact, the album proved that Strait had an undeniable gift for making music that resonated with people. Even decades later, songs from the soundtrack remain some of his most requested tracks at concerts. And despite being in the industry for so long, Strait has never stepped away from performing. In 2007, he brought a young Taylor Swift on tour as his opening act. In 2017, he teamed up with Casey Musgraves. After taking a break due to the pandemic, he resumed touring in 2021, adding more dates to his Strait to Vegas tour. His passion for music hasn't faded, and neither has his connection with his fans. But did you know that George Strait isn't just known for his music, he's also deeply committed to giving back? A deep commitment to helping others. Since 2010, he has been the spokesman for the Wrangler National Patriot Program, which supports military veterans and their families. His decision to get involved was an easy one. "I've been a part of the Wrangler family for a long time. When they came to me with the idea for supporting fallen and wounded American veterans and their families, I knew I wanted to get involved," he said. But his contributions to veterans don't stop there. Each year, Strait hosts the Vaqueros del Mar Invitational Golf Tournament and concert at the Tapatio Springs Resort, which he co-owns with longtime friend Tom Cusick. The event raises money for Troops First Foundation, an organization that provides support to wounded servicemen and women. Since 2012, the event has raised over $5 million, making a real difference in the lives of many veterans. Strait also steps up in times of crisis. When Hurricane Harvey devastated Texas in 2017, he partnered with Governor Greg Abbott to assist in disaster relief efforts. His dedication to his home state earned him the honor of being named Texan of the Year in 2018 by the Texas Legislative Conference. His generosity doesn't stop at veterans and disaster relief. From 1983 to 2017, Strait hosted the George Strait Team Roping Classic, an annual team roping event that brought cowboys from all over the country to compete. It originally took place in Kingsville, Texas, before moving to San Antonio. While the event may no longer be held, it remains a testament to Strait's love for rodeo culture and his desire to support the sport. A career like no other. Few artists in any genre have achieved what George Strait has in country music. Over the course of his career, he has broken records that no one else has even come close to matching. Strait holds the title for the most #1 songs in a single genre, with an unbelievable 61 chart toppers. Even legends like Conway Twitty and Johnny Cash haven't reached those numbers. He also holds another major record. He is the only artist in Billboard history to have a top 10 hit every year for 30 consecutive years. It all started with his debut single, Unwound, which reached number 6 on the Hot Country Singles chart in 1981. From that point on, he never looked back. With over 70 million albums sold in the U.S., Strait's impact is undeniable. His albums have earned 13 multi-platinum, 33 platinum, and 38 gold certifications from the RIAA. These numbers make him one of the best-selling artists in American history, not just in country music but across all genres. But music isn't the only place where Strait made a mark. He also dabbled in acting. In addition to his starring role in Pure Country, he had a small part in the 1982 film The Soldier and appeared as himself in Grand Champion, 2002. Though he never pursued acting as a full-time career, Pure Country remains a favorite among his fans. And even now, after more than 4 decades in the business, George Strait continues to perform. He may have slowed down his touring schedule, but he hasn't stepped away from the stage. His concerts are still packed with fans who want to hear the voice that has defined country music for generations. Strait has built a career on authenticity, talent, and a deep respect for his fans. He's a legend in every sense of the word, and he continues to prove why he's the king of country. But beyond the sold-out arenas and record-breaking hits, there's another side to George Strait, one that's deeply personal. Away from the spotlight, his greatest success has always been the love and loyalty of his family. George Strait's personal life. George Strait's love story is as legendary as his music. Before he became the king of country, he was just a young man in Texas, deeply in love with his high school sweetheart, Norma Voss. Their love wasn't just a fleeting teenage romance, it was something real, something lasting. In December 1971, George and Norma eloped in Mexico. There was no grand wedding, no big celebration, just 2 young hearts who knew they were meant to be together, and from that moment on, Norma became the steady force behind George's incredible journey. Just a year after they married, their first child, Jennifer Lynn Strait, was born on October 6, 1972. Their family was growing, and life seemed perfect. Almost a decade later, they welcomed their son, George Harvey Strait Jr., known as Bubba, in 1981. For years, George balanced family life with his rising music career. As his fame grew, Norma stayed by his side, raising their children away from the spotlight. Their bond remained strong through the highs and lows of life, a love story that stood the test of time. Decades later, in 2024, when George received the Willie Nelson Lifetime Achievement Award, he made sure to acknowledge the woman who had been there through it all. "It's so great to have my family here tonight," he said, before turning to Norma. "She supported me for just shy of 53 years in December." Their love story wasn't just about romance. It was about commitment, loyalty, and weathering life's storms together. And one of those storms would change their lives forever. A family tragedy that changed everything. On June 25, 1986, George Strait's world shattered. His 13-year-old daughter, Jennifer, was in a car with friends in San Marcos, Texas, when the unimaginable happened. The driver was speeding when he lost control of the vehicle while trying to make a turn. The car flipped, and Jennifer, who wasn't wearing a seatbelt, was ejected from the vehicle. She didn't survive and died. Losing a child is a pain no parent should have to endure, and for George, the grief was overwhelming. The man who had sung about love, life, and heartache on stage was now facing a tragedy deeper than any song could capture. He didn't stop making music, but he withdrew from the public eye. For years, he refused to do interviews, avoiding questions about his loss. In a rare moment of reflection, he later admitted, "I just didn't feel like talking about it, so I quit. I did want to keep singing, absolutely, but I was at the point where I'm like, all right, if this is going to cost me my career, then so be it. But it's the only way I'm going to be able to cope with it." It was a painful silence, but it was the only way he knew how to deal with the heartbreak, honoring Jennifer through music. Although he rarely spoke about Jennifer publicly, George Strait grieved through his music. Many believe his 1988 hit song, "Baby Blue," was a tribute to his daughter. The lyrics spoke of loss, of love left behind. "She came and left, and I still don't know why, so here's to you and whoever holds my baby blue tonight." George never confirmed that the song was written for Jennifer, but to those who knew his story, it was clear. Every time he sang those words, the pain was real. Nearly 2 decades later, another song reminded him of her, his 2005 hit, "You'll Be There." Unlike Baby Blue, this song spoke of hope, of the belief that they would be reunited someday. "I'm a religious person," Strait told Shreveport Times in 2007. "I honestly believe we will see each other in heaven someday. I wanted to do the song badly." The song's writer, Corey Mayo, knew how much it meant to George. He waited until the right moment, holding on to the song until George was ready. "It was kind of him to do that," George later said. Through these songs, George Strait found a way to express his grief, to keep Jennifer's memory alive without speaking about it. But he didn't stop there. He wanted her legacy to be something more, something that would help others. The Jennifer Strait Memorial Foundation. In 1987, a year after Jennifer's passing, George and his family started the Jennifer Strait Memorial Foundation. They didn't want her life to be forgotten. Instead, they turned their loss into something meaningful, something that would help children in need. The foundation wasn't a publicity stunt. It wasn't about fame or recognition. It was a quiet tribute, supported by private donations from friends, fans, and people who wanted to make a difference. Every year, the foundation donates to children's charities in San Antonio, Texas. Through this work, Jennifer's name lives on, not in tragedy, but in kindness, in generosity, in the lives of children who benefit from these donations. For George and Norma, this was their way of honoring their daughter. While they couldn't bring her back, they could ensure that her memory was used to bring hope to others. Despite the heartbreak, the Strait family remained strong. Through grief and healing, George and Norma continued raising their son, Bubba, while keeping Jennifer's memory close to their hearts. For years, George stayed out of the media spotlight, but his love for music never faded. He kept performing, kept recording, and continued to break records in country music. But no matter how many awards he won, how many albums he sold, or how many fans filled stadiums to see him perform, his family always came first. To this day, Jennifer's legacy lives on, not just through the foundation, but in the hearts of those who loved her. And every time George Strait sings, her memory is there, woven into the music that has touched so many lives. But did you know that George also has a son? While Jennifer's memory lives on through love and music, Bubba Strait has carved his own path, one that took him far from the stage and into the heart of the rodeo arena. Bubba Strait, the son who walks his own path. Growing up as the son of the king of country music meant that Bubba Strait was always surrounded by music, but while his father was making history on stage, Bubba found his passion somewhere else, in the rodeo arena. Born on May 14, 1981, Bubba developed a love for team roping at an early age. He later attended Texas A&M University, where he took the sport more seriously. After college, he became a professional roper and competed in events across the country. He even joined the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, PRCA, proving that his skills weren't just a hobby, they were the real deal. His father, George Strait, shared this passion with him. For 35 years, George ran the George Strait Team Roping Classic, one of the most prestigious events in the sport. In 2004, Bubba participated in the 22nd Annual Classic, showing off the talent that made his father proud. But rodeo comes with risks. At one point, Bubba suffered a serious injury when his finger got caught in a rope. According to The New Yorker, the accident nearly severed his index finger. Though he recovered, it was a reminder of how dangerous the sport could be. Through it all, George was Bubba's biggest supporter. He once told the Team Roping Journal, "It's the greatest feeling in the world to watch my son win a roping, or even to just watch him compete. I'm sure I'm way more nervous than he is when I'm just watching." But the greatest moments came when they roped together. George Strait, a country music legend, found his proudest moments not on stage but in the rodeo arena, winning buckles alongside his son. A quiet entry into music. For years, Bubba stayed out of the music world, focusing on rodeo instead. He had a famous last name, but he didn't rush to follow in his father's footsteps. Music was always there, but it wasn't his main focus. His first introduction to country music came in 1992, when he made a small but memorable appearance in his father's movie, Pure Country. Bubba's young voice can be heard in the opening song, Heartland. It was a special moment, but at the time, few could have guessed he would later become a songwriter. It wasn't until years later that Bubba started writing songs. He had learned from one of the best, his father. And when he finally decided to give songwriting a shot, he proved to be a natural. Bubba co-wrote multiple songs on George's 2009 album, Twang, including Living for the Night, Out of Sight, Out of Mind, and He's Got That Something Special. He even got a solo writing credit for Arkansas Dave. The song Living for the Night was a big deal, not just because it was a great track, but because it was the first single George Strait had ever co-written. The song, written by George Bubba and legendary songwriter Dean Dillon, became a major hit, reaching number 2 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart. Seeing Bubba embrace music made George happy. In an interview with People, he shared how proud he was. "Bubba really got me back into writing. That's been a great experience for me, to be able to watch him grow and blossom as a songwriter." Bubba didn't stop there. He continued writing songs for his father's albums, contributing to Here for a Good Time, 2011, Love is Everything, 2013, Cold Beer Conversation, 2015, and Honky Tonk Time Machine, 2019. Though he never pursued a singing career of his own, his words helped shape some of George Strait's biggest songs in the later years of his career. A special moment on stage. For most of his life, Bubba preferred staying out of the spotlight. He wasn't interested in fame, but in 2014, he stepped onto one of the biggest stages in country music. It was the final stop of George Strait's The Cowboy Rides Away tour, a farewell tour that had lasted 2 years. The last concert took place in Arlington, Texas, in front of over 100,000 fans. It was a historic night, one that country music fans would never forget. And on that night, Bubba joined his father on stage. Together they performed Arkansas Dave, a song Bubba had written himself. It was a rare and touching moment, father and son sharing a stage, making music together. It was also a fitting way to close that chapter of George Strait's career. After that show, George retired from full-scale touring. Though Bubba mostly stays out of the public eye, he has made appearances at major industry events. He attended the 2007 Country Music Hall of Fame medallion ceremony, the 2009 ACM Awards Artist of the Decade event, and the 2012 ASCAP Country Music Awards in Nashville. Whenever his father was honored, Bubba was there to support him. Family life in Texas. Despite his connection to country music, Bubba never chased the spotlight. Instead, he chose a quieter life in Texas with his wife, Tamara Strait. The couple met in 2005 at a San Antonio Spurs game where Tamara was a silver dancer. Their connection was instant, and 5 years later, in 2010, Bubba proposed. They got married in December of that same year. Tamara is now a successful realtor running her own real estate business, Strait Luxury. She often shares glimpses of their life together on Instagram, though Bubba himself has no social media presence. The couple has 2 children, George Harvey Strait III, known as Harvey, who was born in 2012, and Jillian Louise Strait, born in 2016. In 2019, young Harvey joined his grandfather on stage at the Houston Rodeo singing God and country music. It was a moment that made George Strait incredibly proud. Talking about his grandchildren, George once said, "My grandson played drums for a while and will probably go back to it at some point, but right now it's baseball for him plus hunting and fishing." I've heard a little singing from time to time from my granddaughter. She sounded pretty good. It's way too early to predict something like that, but I'll encourage them in whatever it is they decide to do. Even though Bubba grew up in the world of country music, he has chosen to keep his life private. He and his family still live in San Antonio, Texas, away from the cameras and the fame. And while he may not be performing on stage, his influence is clear. Whether it's through his songwriting, his love of rodeo, or the values he's passed on to his children, Bubba Strait has made his mark, just like his legendary father, George Strait, still making waves in country music. Even after decades in the industry, George Strait is far from slowing down. The king of country continues to make headlines, whether it's for his record-breaking tours, new music, or viral moments at award shows. Recently, Strait made waves at the 2024 CMA Awards, where he received the prestigious Willie Nelson Lifetime Achievement Award. This honor recognized his incredible impact on country music, but it wasn't just the award that had people talking. Fans couldn't help but notice Strait's unamused expression throughout the night. Sitting front and center in his signature black cowboy hat, Strait looked less than impressed as he watched the performances. While the crowd cheered, clapped, and enjoyed the show, he remained serious and stoic. Social media users quickly picked up on his expression, with one joking, "The look you have when you're sick of pop country." Another added, "Me waiting for the country music to show up at the CMA Awards." But Strait wasn't just there to watch, he was the night's biggest honoree. Instead of walking the red carpet, he arrived quietly with his wife, Norma Strait, and later posed for a photo with Post Malone. Outside of award shows, Strait is still active in touring and music. His Straight to Vegas residency continues to sell out, proving that his fan base is as strong as ever. Even in his 70s, he remains one of the most in-demand live performers in country music. Strait may not always show excitement at flashy events, but one thing is certain, he's still a major force in country music, and he's not going anywhere. What are your thoughts on George Strait's reaction at the CMAs? Do you think he was unimpressed with modern country music? Or was he just being his usual laid-back self? And more importantly, what's your all-time favorite George Strait song? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.